I'm at the Great Welsh Beer and Cider Festival, and I found John Keeling, the head brewer of Fuller's Brewery.
You do?
Yeah, nice to meet you. So what brings you down to the Welsh?
Well, Arthur kindly invited me to be a judge at the festival, and I enjoy judging, and also gives me a chance to taste other people's beers, other than Fuller's beers, which I enjoy as well, so it's a nice day out.
I've reviewed a couple of the Fuller's beers, the London Pride, which has had a couple of thousand reviews, and the Golden Pride, which has had over 600 reviews. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of Fuller's?
Yeah, we became Fuller Smith & Turner in 1845. That was a partnership with Mr. Fuller, Mr. Smith and Mr. Turner. Before that, we've been owned by various different families, and you can trace brewing at Fuller's back to the age of Cromwell.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and since 1845, we've had Fuller Smith and Turners always involved. At the moment, our chairman is Michael Turner,
yeah.
our president is Anthony Fuller, so we've got a strong family involvement still.
Absolutely. It is a family brewery, yeah. But it is also growing at the same time, isn't it? I look at some of the things you're doing. You're looking to brew more beer all the time. Yeah. What range have you got, from darks to milds to IPAs? Have you got an extensive range of beers?
We do produce a lot of beers. We are a growing brewery. We're buying more pubs. That's hoping to sell more beer. But not many people understand that nearly 80% of the beer produced at Fuller's is sold outside Fuller's pubs. Only 20%, about 20% of the beers are sold within Fuller's pubs. When I joined Fuller's 30 years ago, when I was 10, that's a joke by the way, and we only made about 65, 70,000 barrels of beer. This year we made 220,000 barrels. We only owned about 90 pubs. We now own 365
Fantastic.
pubs. So we're a growing concern, and in those days as well, we only really had two recipes.
Yeah.
One was the mild recipe, one was the bitter recipe. Because they were party guiled, we were able to produce a whole series of beers from each recipe. So for instance, the bitter party guiled recipe would produce Chiswick Bitter, ESB and London Pride.
Yeah.
The mild recipe would produce a mild cold hock and a strong ale. And if you go a little bit further back in time, before I joined the company, the mild recipe also produced a beer called Old Burton Extra. So they were all part of that party gap. Nowadays, we produce a lot of different beers. Discovery, Honeydew, as well as all the standard beers, London Pride, Chiswick Bitter, Golden Pride, Vintage End, Bengal Lancer's different recipe, Porter. We now produce a double stout for the first time. But since 1893, we used the recipe from 1893 to produce a double stout. This is in our Past Masters series. And there's been this explosion in flavour within the world of beer. A lot of it is recreating what has gone on in the past. I mean, a lot of people now use American hops. Yeah. When we started investigating our brewing records from 1893, we were quite surprised to find we used California hops.
That's just staggering, that's amazing.
You know, so nothing is new really in the world of beer. Apart from, you know, the micros now are experimenting more and more. They've kicked the door down, everything is getting wider and wider. Thank God they've done it, because it makes the world of beer an more interesting place to be.
You just scratched the surface slightly about your career at Fuller's. Would you go in depth for that?
Yeah, I went to Heriot-Watt University and did a degree in brewing and distilling. Before that, I worked for Wilson's Brewery in Manchester, Newton Heath. And since I left Heriot-Watt, the first company that agreed to employ me was Fuller's, and I've been there ever since. I've been a Fuller's brewer for 30 years.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you've seen a lot of changes over that.
Oh yes, yes. Fuller's has changed hugely. We've invested a lot of money in modern plants and equipment, which lends consistency and quality to the beer. The other attributes that we want in a great beer are flavour and character. Flavour really comes from the raw materials and the recipe. Character comes from the people who have the standards and values and the philosophy of making beer. So the character in the beer really comes from people and that philosophy. Consistency comes from that modern plan. The fact that you can reproduce every time what you want to do to a higher degree. You cannot reproduce it exactly. You want the world's most consistent drink. Don't drink beer, drink vodka and tonic. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah? But it's that character in the beer, those little differences that are there that give people interest.
There's a big buzz at the moment with beer, real ale, craft beer, as they call it in America and Europe. There's even talk of beer doing a wine. In the 70s and 80s, wine was a small market. All of a sudden, it exploded in the 70s and 80s. People now stand in front of the Tesco supermarkets reading a bottle of wine for 15 minutes before they buy it. There's talk of real ale, craft beer and beers doing the same thing. Do you agree with that?
To a degree. I mean, I don't want to just do wine in any shape or form. I think beer, for instance, is technologically far more advanced. We understand more about fermentation, I think, than the world of wine does. And we understand more about the technology of how to make good beer. That's because we make it every day of the year.
Exactly.
Yeah? So we have that ability. What we've lost out to wine is how we describe it. It's really the terminology, and it's the ability to get the message over to the consumer. That's what we've got to learn from the world of wine. Wine, I drink wine. I think wine is a great drink, and very hugely enjoyable. Same as beer, they're not competitive in any shape or form. We can learn from each other, and we can actually then get to the customer, get to the consumer, explain to them better so that they understand what they want from that drink, and therefore it satisfies them more because they have a greater understanding.
Fantastic. And one last question before I go. Social networks are growing all the time, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. How important is that to Fullers? The social networks where you can spread your message and other people can, like myself here, making a video with just a video camera, I'm interviewing you here, just off the cuff, after the last 5 minutes talking to you. How important is social networking? And years ago, you would have had to gone to somebody like ITV, BBC to make this interview. We're just doing it off the cuff now. So how important is social networking?
I think it is very important. I mean, Fuller's is a very traditional company, which means we're a bit slow on the uptake in certain areas. Yeah? But against that, I tweet, I'm on Twitter. We're about to upgrade our website. We're doing work on that, but what's great about this is you can get to people very quickly through using that media, through talking to people like you, but also you get instant reaction. Yeah? It's not about sort of putting an advertisement out and then seeing what happens. You get an instant reaction, and you can talk to people, and also people can meet me, and they can meet the other brewers and Fullers, and they can put a personality to the beer, a person to the beer, because it is about people. Making beer, drinking beer is about people. It's not about faceless advertising and marketing. It's about real people.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, John,
and thank you
for the interview. Thanks for Mrs. Real Ale Guy for filming. Going to try the rest of your range shortly. Thanks for the interview, and cheers.
Cheers.